All right, thank you. So if you have not yet had an opportunity, I am going to use Pear Deck for a large portion of today's session. You are all going to be joining as anonymous animals of some sort. So I'm not actually going to know who you are, but I don't always know when I'm presenting to large groups of people if everyone has a Google account. So I know it's Google Camp, but I don't want to take any chances. So I'm going to ask you to join my Pear Deck because there's multiple reasons for this. Number one, it is for me the first example of student voice because Pear Deck allows even the quiet, shy, introverted students an opportunity to actually participate in a lesson. And so I use Pear Deck almost exclusively. So if you have not yet joined the Pear Deck, for those of you that were here earlier, you had a chance to doodle or tell me what is bringing you joy. What you don't know is that I'm actually watching your responses on a separate screen. And that's actually the joy of Pear Deck for me is I have an opportunity to just kind of spy. I don't call it spying because I'm not really spying on you. But I'm going to make this Pear Deck full screen. I will still have access to the chat, but I can't guarantee that I'm always going to be checking the chat. So I see that I have a mountain goat. Ooh, that's fun. I don't think I've ever had a mountain goat before. I have a hippo. I like it. I like it. And again, this whole doodling thing, not required. I just wanted to give everyone a chance to hang out. Ooh, an anonymous rhino. I'm very addicted to zoo shows. So anonymous Pear Deck animals is kind of like my jam because I'm like, wow, you're like an anonymous deer. So exciting. And you didn't have to respond. I just always find it super duper fun and exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on keeping on here because I also like to talk a lot. I believe my moderator April, because she is helping me more than she knows. This link, the bit.do. So if you are in the Pear Deck, that link will actually be live for you. So you could actually click on it and it's going to actually take you to a copy of all of my slides. So you can kind of get a little bit of heads up. And April is going to help me by just kind of keeping track of everything and making sure that you all have access to that. I've put it on several other slides as well. So if you don't join the Pear Deck, you are going to want to get a copy of these slides. I mean, I would want a copy of these slides for sure. And so you have kind of multiple options to make that work. And so that bit.do, not bit.ly, but I like it a little bit better. Before I introduce myself, I'm going to do a very short land acknowledgement. Kind of became a huge thing for me. I live in the city of Camarillo, so I'm in Ventura County, and the land originally belonged to the Chumash and Algonquin people. If you text that number and put your zip code, they'll actually text you back with the indigenous people that resided in the same place that initially founded the place where you currently live as well. I just thought that was really cool. And I learned about it in March. And now I add that to every presentation. So it's just kind of fun. I don't know. I find it interesting. And it's just a thing to do, I guess, right? My name is Brianna Davis. As April had mentioned earlier, I am an instructional specialist, so kind of like a fancy term for a teacher on special assignment for all social science in a high school district here in Ventura County. So I have taught social science for 20 years. I'm a Google trainer. I'm also a Pear Deck coach. So I love all things history. I love all things Google, and I definitely love Pear Deck as well. There's my Twitter handle and my email address, because if at any point in time I, share something and you're like, wow, I'd really like to, get to know that a little bit more. You have access and you have a copy of my email address. I'm going to apologize in advance. I've had a cold for about 5 days. So if I start coughing, I apologize in advance. Between my first session this morning and my second session, I went to urgent care. So I have to go get my drugs a little bit later today. So if I start coughing, I apologize in advance. With Pear Deck, I love the ability to have drawing slides. My district pays for premium access. If I'm really gifted and with it, I might be able to find 90 days of free premium access. But I want you to have a chance to play around with Pear Deck right now. You don't have to give me your anonymous animal, but the joy of Pear Deck is you also have a text box feature. So if you're looking at this and you're like, oh my God, I do not have a touch screen and I do not know how to color with my mouse, there's a T that should show up on the bottom of your screen. And then that's a text box. So you can actually text. You don't have to color, you don't have to draw, but you can actually use a text box. What I'd like for you to do, I would love if you gave me your name and where you teach on this slide. Again, it's not required because I still know that you're an anonymous hippo, but I know you're not an anonymous hippo. You're actually a real person. So I'm going to also show you a feature of Pear Deck. I'm going to give you 1 minute to get this done. So I'm also timing you. Let's see. Oh, I bet you I have it here. Maybe. Do, you're in luck. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Thank you, April, for providing the Pear Deck one. I appreciate you. Okay, so one of the joys of Pear Deck is I know I just locked you out, but I'll unlock the screen. I did find a 90-day premium access. So wow, that is awesome. I'm gonna have to figure out in a minute, maybe towards the end, how I can get that link to all of you, because it turns out it was actually in an email, which is what I thought it was, but that's okay. So I can actually provide all of you who are here a 90-day premium account for Pear Deck. And with the premium account, you can do a drawing slide. So just like I asked you to do, you can have students draw on their screens. But I'm also going to talk about some options if you don't have a premium account or your district won't provide the premium account. There's a way to do almost everything without it as well. But I did find it. So it is your lucky day that I remembered. I had it in an email and I found that email. So hey, I call that a win for everybody. All right. So there are 4 things that I actually want to try and talk about today. And each of them has something to do with voice and choice. As a history teacher, I understand how difficult it is to actually get kids to understand, the importance of history, but also how to get them to talk about the subject. And so number 1 is Pear Deck. Pear Deck is and has been my go-to for the last 4 years or so. I am blessed that my district pays for it, so I accept that and I understand that. But we are going to talk about Pear Deck. Number 2 is EduProtocols. And I found a way to merge EduProtocols and Pear Deck. So to me, that was like the best of both worlds. And so I have some templates that I'm going to share with you. I have some methods to kind of get kids to actually like dive into content. And then number 3, choice boards. So this is the ultimate student choice because I have a topic where they're supposed to master that content, but they have an option in terms of how they want to show me what they know. And then group playlists and station rotations. So each one of these are things that I have done in the past. And then there's also a special bonus at the end, but we got to hope I can get there. So we're going to start with obviously number 1, which is Pear Deck. Perry and I, that's the mascot for Pear Deck. I like to say that we are best friends. And I do truly love the power of the pear. I use the power of the pear at just about everything I do, because if I can't use Pear Deck, sometimes my answer is it's just not worth doing anymore. So here's where I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell me what you know. So I'd like you to, again, use the typing feature. So the text box, if you're not comfortable drawing, because as we all like to say, I'm not an artist, but I'd like you to use the text box feature to tell me 2 things you already know about Pear Deck. And this is actually a Pear Deck template slide. So I didn't create this. That's what I love about Pear Deck, is they kind of give me things and I just make them fit me. I kind of like to sometimes modify it, sometimes make it pretty, whatever works. I'm going to time you, but I might give you extra time for this one, I promise. Participants can now see your application. Whoa. Never seen that before. That was weird. Okay. So, boop. Doot. Ooh. Oh no. Oh no. My little nose. Okay. I know I timed you, but I actually, like I said, have been monitoring you on a different screen. And some of you have obviously used Pear Deck before. So one of the reasons I love Pear Deck is I'm going to show you responses, but you're not going to have any idea who actually said it. And even if you were joined with your actual name and we were in a class together, it still doesn't show student names. So the reason that I love Pear Deck is I can highlight responses. And so that's the reason I chose this one. Students love to highlight their learning for sure. And I love that I can actually feedback. I can actually provide instant feedback during a Pear Deck presentation. I also highlighted this one because they brought up the very important point that Pear Deck has 2 options. There is student-paced mode, or they said self-paced. So there's a student-paced mode, and student-paced is great for like you're out of town or you're not there, but your kids still need to do stuff, or you just want to, provide that extra assistance. Student-paced mode is the way to go. And then teacher-paced mode or direct instruction is what we're doing right now. So we're all kind of learning together. Primary and secondary source analysis is one of my all-time favorites. Somebody beat me to the punch because I was actually going to talk about this on the next slide in terms of like things I can do with Pear Deck. Okay, yes, low bandwidth. I think you kind of have to build up to it, I will admit. My students kind of came in knowing that, oh my God, Davis is making us do Pear Deck again. But I always started with like a GIF check-in. So they were kind of like, I lowered that effective filter and I wasn't like gung-ho. I was always kind of like, okay, couple slides at a time. We're not going to like do this for an entire hour. Let's just kind of, build up to it, right? It can be given as a homework assignment, which is phenomenal. Again, I can kind of switch back and forth as well. So I don't have to always be in one mode. The joy of Pear Deck is I can go back and forth. And then I don't have to recreate the wheel. And that for me was a game changer because I was like, I'm always making stuff. Why would I have to go back and recreate everything? So I just wanted to show you a few responses just because I wanted to highlight some of the wonderful things that Pear Deck does and that Pear Deck makes available. Several others of you had great answers as well, so I didn't want to, highlight everybody's, but I did want you to realize that there's a lot of great things. So this one, some of you had already kind of hinted at this. Annotating primary sources and Pear Deck is amazing because I don't have to collect anything. That's what I kind of love more than anything. I don't have to like take it home just because, I have a busy life. What can I say? But I can also provide that real-time feedback. And I can even add things on the fly, which Pear Deck didn't used to do, but now they do. And it's kind of super fun because when I first started using Pear Deck, it was like, I needed a question there and you couldn't go back and change it. Well, now you can. So that just makes life super easy because I can like be in the middle of something and be like, wait, I forgot this question. And I can add one right there. Pear Deck, if you didn't know, has this thing called Flashcard Factory, which is so fun because it allows for vocabulary development. And as a history teacher, we have a lot of academic vocabulary. I mean, everybody knows that, right? And with Flashcard Factory, what you do is your students are assigned a job, day shift or night shift, and they have to draw the word. So you create the list, and you can use any vocabulary word, and then they'll get a definition. So they'll be partnered up. So they're working as a team, a partnership. One person is going to draw what they think the word means. The other person is going to use that word in a sentence or is going to kind of give an example of that word in writing. And the best part is for every word, it rotates. So you're not always drawing and you're not always writing, and you can't move on until your partner's ready. So with the Flashcard Factory, it's a little friendly competition. I've seen first graders do it, and then seniors in high school, they loved it because it was an opportunity to practice their skills, but also build their vocabulary. Annotating primary sources and Pear Deck go hand in hand because I have a highlighter tool, which I think is super fun. My students, probably not so much. And then I can join the Pear Deck as a student as well. So if I have an iPad, which is how I'm monitoring you right now, I can join the Pear Deck as a student and I can show my answers. If I want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page, we can all be at the same place at the same time. If we were in a Google class, I would actually provide takeaways. So the best part about Pear Deck for me is my students don't have to write everything down. They have to interact, they have to participate. But there's no frantic like, oh my gosh, I didn't get that. Can you go back to slide 3? Because when we're done, when I end this Pear Deck session, my students would automatically get a copy of the entire slide deck. So they're not only going to get my slide with the information, they're also going to get their answers so they can use that in the future. Same thing for a primary source. If we were annotating a primary source, my students are going to get the source. They're also going to get their annotations and any other questions that I had. It's not available with the anonymous animal mode, but sorry about that. And then there's that lovely student paced mode. And I can actually switch back and forth. So let's say we didn't finish, I can put you in student paced mode, homework, and then we could come back the next day and we could go back to teacher paced or direct instruction. So Pear Deck is phenomenal. It's just so much fun. Here's another wonderful thing about Pear Deck. So I have the ability to ask a multiple choice question, a text question, a number question, which the only number I care about is like a year, let's be honest. I can do a website. And so what this is I've embedded one of my other favorite websites. And I'm going to ask you all right now. So I actually will get your score. It should pop up on the right-hand side. So if you are in this Pear Deck with me, you're going to actually go play a word wall. And this is a word wall on Hamilton, the musical. And so I'm going to give you like a minute because I'm going to play too, because I always like to play. You're going to drag your answers. Oh, there we go. And it's going to tell you whether you're right or wrong. Oh no. Oh, it's not letting me finish. And it won't let me end my own game. Oh, sorry about that. If you're still playing the word, it won't let me end my own word wall. That's a bummer. But if you have never played with word wall, it is phenomenal because I can take a word wall that I've created and I can then add it as a website slide, and that makes it super easy. So I'm going to keep on going in the event you're still playing my Hamilton matchup. Yay for you, because it's super fun. But at the same time, it is, you can also use this for Google Slides. Let's say I had a Google Doc that I wanted my students to go and look at. I can do this with YouTube videos. Anything that you can embed, you can add as a Pear Deck website slide. So I did that with this word wall. But let's say, because we're going to move into my Edu protocols now, if I wanted to have everybody in the same slide deck, I could share the slides as a website slide. And then I know that we're all in the same place, because one of the joys of Pear Deck is I don't necessarily control your entire computer, but I control just enough of it that I that I feel confident, like knowing that you're not off doing things that I don't necessarily want you to do. So word wall is a great way to use the embedded website option, which again, you may or may not have, and everybody has that one. You don't need a premium account for that. This one is another version kind of the same thing. I took this slide. I used this slide from Amanda Sandoval. You mention her name a few more times because she gave this slide out as part of, and the joy of, by giving you a copy of this presentation, you can then put this slide into your own slide deck, and the Pear Deck question is already there. So there's no need, you don't have to like add it again. It will already be there. And you can just copy the slide into a new slide deck, and the Pear Deck feature will automatically show up. And this one is great. She used this one for English learners. So this is another option for just kind of keeping everybody on the same page. It is a drawing slide. So it kind of is a premium feature, but it could also be done as a text feature. You just have to kind of make multiple copies of it. But what we know, what we want to learn, how we will learn it is from the teacher direction. And then what we learned would come at the end. So you would see this slide twice. I left the Pear Deck feature on here, even though we're not actually going to do this slide at this point in time. But I did want to highlight the fact that it's going to automatically transfer with you. So if you take this slide and you choose to use it, the Pear Deck drawing feature will already be there. And I find that to be super convenient for people who have 20,000. Okay, that's a little exaggeration. I have a lot of Google Slides that I don't have to reinvent the wheel to go back to what somebody had said earlier. So now we're going to go into, so the title of this was Student Voice and Choice. So EduProtocols changed my life. I'm not kidding when I say that. And they allowed me to teach better and work less, which for me was like a, wow, where's this been all my life kind of thing. And I kind of took a lot of time processing, like, what does this mean? And how's this going to look? How does this work in a history class? And then when I started doing it, I really did say, wow, where's this been all my life? And it came to a point where I had just about everything planned. And I had an EduProtocol going probably, I would say 3 to 4 days out of the week. And by like week 3, my students knew exactly what to do. And we were on a roll. And I always started with a non-academic content. So I'm going to talk about a lot of EduProtocols. I don't think we're going to have time to actually do any of them, but I'm going to show you how they work. And I also am going to show you how I use Pear Deck. So you can, choose to use them or choose not to. That's fine. And a lot of people have asked me like how I did that, like how I kind of said, okay, let's say I'm teaching a unit on the Constitution, because I used to teach government almost exclusively. Government was my favorite thing to teach. So how could I teach the Constitution using EduProtocols? And I would pretty much do some variation of this slide all the time. The first thing I would always do is the fast and curious. For that, I used quizzes. As a Google Classroom user, I just kind of, during distance learning, the quizzes was an assignment that they just had to do. But when we were live in class, the quizzes would be like the first thing we did before we joined the Pear Deck. And the quizzes is something you take every day. And you start the week maybe at like 60, 70%. And then by week's end, hopefully, you have a class average of a 95% or higher. And that was something that it's the same questions, but the order always changes. And with quizzes, students are always answering the same questions, but kind of trying to figure out, okay, am I learning something? And hopefully the answer is yes. Number 2 is the Great American Race. So this is how I always would introduce a unit, especially if it was like a big content heavy unit. The Great American Race is like a reverse scavenger hunt where you assign every student a topic, but they're not allowed to use the word or their name or anything else like that on the slide. So I provide a blank slide deck. And I would use Pear Deck for that. So I could just push out the slide deck in Pear Deck. Everybody's kind of working at their own speed. And then there's a Google form at the end. And that way we at least have an overview of everything we're going to do. Then I could Iron Chef, which is a jigsaw. We would do a thin slide actually every week. For me, it was either a thin slide current event. Thin slides, actually, I'm going to show you on the next slide. So I'll come back to that one. Sketch and tell or a cyber sandwich can kind of go at any point in time. And then archetype, which is actually a new EduProtocol that will be included in the new book, which is coming very soon, I've been told. And I'll talk about that one in a little bit. And then there would be a choice board. And that choice board was for students to actually have an opportunity to show me that they actually learned something. So this combination, just kind of like the content always changed, but the format pretty much stayed the same. And my students were learning way more than I ever thought possible. And I was also getting through a lot more content. So if you're not familiar with EduProtocols, here's a slide that shows you all of the books. The first 2 have been available for several years. The math edition, I own, but I don't teach math. So I kind of share that with my math friends. Deploying EduProtocols. And then there's that history edition. I am very excited for this one to come out. I'm surprised I haven't already added it to my Amazon cart, even though it's not published yet. But that one I am anxiously awaiting, and I've been told it will be available any day. I don't know when that day will be, but trust me, it's going to be a good day. The next one is the thin slide. So this one, I kind of mentioned I use every single day. I didn't share this one with Pear Deck, but if I were going to do this in an actual class, the slide would be just like that. And the joy of a thin slide is the rules are very simple. You get one word and one image, and every student gets a slide. And you only get 5 minutes. So there's, a little bit of a pressure so that I'm not spending like 40 minutes trying to figure out what my one word is. It is definitely pressure. And you have a 3 seconds to share your slide. It can be done in less than 10 minutes, depending on your class size. I would share the template with Pear Deck, and then my students would actually share. The template that I have linked on this slide is actually something that you are free to use. And what it is it's a blank slide deck, but in student note or in speaker notes, there's a spot for your student's name and there's a spot for an explanation. So if I'm running out of time or I don't have enough time to actually have them present, I add a written component to a thin slide. So the rules are always the same, one word, one picture, and that's it. But if I want you to provide an explanation, I'll have you do that in speaker notes. And so the template, which if I do this correctly, is going to be actually as a slide theme. So it's set up so that you have the ability to use it or not. But I learned the hard way that if I didn't have several slides at the beginning with like the directions, my students would take over slide one. And I was like, wait, that's not fair. That's my slide. Like, don't mess with my slide. There's always that conversation to be had about like, hey, don't mess with somebody else's slide. You can't change the directions. So I made this a theme as well. So I made it a slide theme so that students can't alter it in any way. But there's a spot here and there's a rubric, graded or not, the choice is yours. But there's a slide here where you can just add in the topic. And so you can have this slide deck and you can just make a copy of it every time you need it and change slide 4 and push it out to students and you are good to go. Like there's one part of a lesson already prepped. And then every other slide, so the rest of them are blank. And they're blank because it's then your student's job to actually like figure out, how do I want to answer this question? Like what's the best word that I can use for this point in time? The next one is sketch and tell. And try and keep track of things. Okay, so sketch and tell is kind of exactly like it seems. You can listen to something or read something or watch something. So if I was showing a video, I don't want students to just, zone out. I might give them, and again, I'm going to use Pear Deck for this. I'll give them a blank slide. And they're going to have to do just that. They're going to have to actually tell me. And so on the next slide, I'm going to show you how a sketch and tell works. And I'm actually going to ask you to fill out the next one. So sketch, one side is for the drawing, and then one side is for a paragraph. So you're going to actually write about what it is that you drew so that I have some explanations or I have some idea in terms of like what it is that you're doing or whether or not you're kind of getting it. The template is going to be exactly like that thin slide one, except this one is just for sketch and tell. So on the next slide, I think I put a prompt up in the top. I sure did. So up there, I'd like you to tell me one new thing you've learned in the last, 35 minutes. Wow. Hey, I'm doing pretty good. And then I want you to sketch it on the left-hand side. So just, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just a little drawing of maybe like a timer, maybe whatever it might be. And then I want you to write about it on the right-hand side. If just, one new thing or one thing that you didn't know about before. And now you're like, whoa, mind blown. One of the downsides to Pear Deck, if you haven't already figured this out, is you cannot insert an image. So yes, I am challenging you because you can't just copy and paste from, you can't copy and paste from something else. You actually have to do it yourself. But it's okay. It's okay. Ah, yeah. Good old word wall. Ooh, an anonymous seagull. Love it. I love it. Didn't know there was an anonymous seagull. All right, see, I'm digging. Let's see, which ones do I want to highlight today? I'm gonna give you one more minute because I'm gonna choose my favorites. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's what I didn't do. Oops. All right, 3, 2, 1. So I'm gonna let you continue working, but I also want to show some of these responses, only because I like it. So when book 3, or not book 3, I shouldn't say that because there's a 3 and 4 that come before it, but when that history book comes out, I know for a fact it will be all over Twitter. There is a Facebook group too, and I may put that in the chats towards the end when I remember how to spell it. Kind of take a lot of cold medicine today. Word wall. I don't know why. I don't know how people don't know about it, but I actually have a whole one pager for word wall that you will get at the end, or if you've already kind of scrolled through. Wordwall is phenomenal. I absolutely love Wordwall. And when I discovered it, I ran to my district and I said, "You're going to pay for this because I'm not paying for it. Like for free, you only get 5." And I was like, "Oh no, I need way more than 5. Like I'm not about to like use it and then delete it and then make." I was like, "No, I want like a whole library." So I talked them into it and it changed my life. I'm not going to lie. Because the best part about Wordwall, and this is what I didn't tell you, you can actually play whack-a-mole, which is my favorite. Like you can come up with like questions of like which one of these does not belong. And it's like the game of whack-a-mole at like Chuck E. Cheese. You literally just sit there and you hit the mole that's not correct. Oh, so fun. There's like a Pac-Man version too. I love them all. So Sketch and Tell is one of my favorite Edge protocols because I can use it for just about everything. And I can use it in Pear Deck. I can use it in a Google slide as well. So there's like lots of different options. I prefer Sketch and Tell, especially in Pear Deck. If we're already like doing something, maybe I had a whole slide of information and I want my students to just sketch it. Like, hey, what did we just talk about? Like, what did you learn? And that gives them, it's a different way of thinking too. And it kind of challenges their brains in maybe a way they're not like used to. The next one, and I don't know why I didn't include this in my unit plan because I use this one like so much. I think I probably forgot about it. And that is the Freyer model, which as a history teacher, again, vocabulary, huge, important, love it, use it all the time. And frayering people is something that once I realized, I was like, wait, seriously, I can just do that? I was like, why haven't I been doing this my whole life, right? Or fraying an event. So let's take the French Revolution, for instance. And all you have to do for a frayer is you just have to think of 4 corners. So it's just 4 corners. And it is a way to just kind of like know how to do stuff. And the joy of the frayer model is it can be done in Pear Deck, but without the ability to insert images, sometimes students don't want to draw. So you can also frayer as just a separate Google slide. The templates that I'm giving you here are kind of for both. The Pear Deck one is actually on the next slide. So both of these templates can kind of be used interchangeably. And you've probably seen this before. And actually, I did want you to do this. So this is kind of my condensed version of a frayer. So for a frayer model, you have 4 corners. And this one, I'm actually going to ask you, since I'm hoping that you're all history teachers, I'd like you to frayer the word democracy. So this one is a drawing slide, but you're going to give me a definition. You're going to give me an image, emoji, or an icon. You're going to give me some examples, and then you're going to give me some non-examples. So in order to actually practice frayering, I'm going to ask you to frayer the word democracy. So ready, set, go. Oh, that's fun. And this is something that, your students can do. They could, if you really wanted to, they could go off and find the direction or like find the definition if you didn't want to use Pear Deck. But I just, I like Pear Deck. What can I say? Oh, okay. Ooh, I like it. I realize I'm not giving you tons of time. Like a minute is not enough, but I'm going to keep us keeping on here. And if you wanted to use this slide with students, you absolutely could. It's just simply a matter of kind of changing it. Like you could take the, you could take the Pear Deck off and have like a series of vocabulary words where you want your students to frayer all of those vocabulary words. And so the reason I created this template is just because I wanted to have like a a basic one that could be used for words, events, people, and then kind of, all encompassing without having to have multiple things for each particular one. While you are continuing to work on this, I'm going to show you a few of my favorites where, again, you have like that square. I did not join this one. I probably should have, because I would have given the definition of like government by the people. So examples, voting, non-examples, dictatorship. I like that kind of, contrast there. You have a little protester here in the corner. Rule by the people. No true examples today. Wow, I can tell I'm in a group of history teachers sometimes. Non-example, communism, monarchy. So I wanted to show you like the ability that it can be done. It's super easy. Here's another version of pretty much the same thing. This is my event frayer. So we're not going to do this one. This is just kind of so you can see how it looks. with Pear Deck. But if you think about this as like the French Revolution, that's what would go in that gray box. And then you have to describe the event. You have to come up with images, any key players. So like Napoleon and Robespierre, the impact of the event. So democracy and French constitutions. Just to make life more exciting. This is another version of a Frayer model, except this one would be how I would Frayer an event. And it can be done with anything. I mean, it's super fun to do with like those, landmark dates in American history, world history, whatever the case may be. It's kind of fun, two more EDGE protocols that I want to briefly touch on. This one is actually part of the new book. So this one is the archetype EDGE protocol. And I know it's included in the new book because I actually have met the authors of the new book. Long story short, I follow them on Twitter and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Being that I left the classroom in October, I had to find somebody who would be willing to let me like borrow their students. And so I finally found somebody. And this one actually was great as a review. So if I started with the Great American Race and I was talking about like a revolution, or I was talking about one of those, things that change the course of history, that also have a lot of people or characters, I guess we could say. The students initially were like, this is an English class. Because I asked that question. I said, where does that word, you've heard that word before, archetype. I know you have. And they're like, yeah, English and like books and stuff. And I was like, yeah. And now we're going to apply that same idea to people. And they were like, what? And it actually was so much fun. I can't wait to do it again. So I actually created this template and now share it with like just about anybody who cares. And what it does is it asks students to take a character. So we actually started with their favorite cartoon character. So I didn't jump right into history. Like I said, nope, we're going to actually start with your favorite cartoon character, be it anime, manga, whatever it is. Think of your favorite cartoon character. And then they had to actually like figure out, and they had to label their cartoon character into one of these 12 archetypes. So they got a copy of these slides. And then they got this, and this should look pretty familiar because it's the Frayer model, but I just applied it to archetypes. So this one we didn't do in Pear Deck because that would have been crazy. Although I could have shared the Google slide deck via Pear Deck. That's like advanced, I guess. But we had every student choose a slide, and they had to label their favorite cartoon character. They had to provide images. So by using Google Slides exclusively, they were able to actually copy and paste the pictures from the internet, which just made life a little bit easier. But then those bottom two, the rationale and support, that one was a little bit of a struggle because they had to figure out, okay, why is Princess Ariel, my favorite animated character, why is she, if I were going to label her, I'd probably label her an explorer. Okay, why? Well, she wanted to leave the under the sea world and be a human. So that, she's tired of exploring the sea, right? But then you also had to give another representation. So they had to connect that cartoon character to something else. So once we did the non-historical example, we then applied it to World War II in a world history class. So they had a list of people associated with World War II, leaders, military leaders, political leaders. And then we actually also applied it to presidents. So we took a US history, AP US history class after the AP exam. And we were like, all right, here's the deal. Pick your favorite president and put that president into an archetype. And I've never had so much fun like in a class that wasn't mine in a very long time. And it was so great to see that connection, for lack of a better word. So I share that with you because it works phenomenally at the end once they have understanding of who all these people are. And we were done in less than an hour. So it wasn't as if like we took forever and ever and ever. We kind of kept things moving quite efficiently. There's the word I needed. The last oh,
sorry, just a little reminder, we have 10 minutes remaining.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, oh man, I knew it was coming. The last Edu protocol that I want to talk about is the random emoji paragraph, which you might think, okay, that sounds very Englishy, but it's not, because here's the historical twist. With the random emoji paragraph, let's say we're talking about World War II. So you're going to write your paragraph as a soldier writing home. Oh, look at that. And with the random emoji paragraph, there's two sites, the class Edu protocols, and then the emojis link are going to take you to school appropriate emojis. So you don't have to worry about like something that you don't want your students to write about. You don't have to worry about that like coming up. And you can do a random emoji paragraph. You can do it on paper. Like you don't need technology. All your students need to be able to do is they need to see the emojis, and you can give them a historical prompt. Like it's super easy. I did make it into a Pear Deck. So this way, like this is a text response. So if I wanted to plan in advance, I could actually screenshot 5 emojis, and then I could write a prompt, like write a story about a World War II vet or a World War II soldier riding home from the Eastern Front. Okay, so I'm going to have to like think about Russia, and maybe it's cold. And so I have to like include some of those. You could also, say include this word in your paragraph. I don't know. There's a historical twist to it that I just love. Students can also get super involved in this. And I would provide the emojis, and then all you have to provide is the story. And then I can share these with everybody. We can use one as the prompt for next week. I mean, there's so many ways to make a random emoji paragraph fun. And you'd be surprised. Like I did this with some 3rd graders. My daughter came home every day for the next like 3 weeks. Mom, we did another random emoji paragraph today. My paragraph was 3 pages long. And I was like, okay, it's just supposed to be 1 paragraph, my dear. Why is it 3 pages? But whatever, that's beside the point. And this one, again, you can use this slide or not. So I'm going to fast forward here. Choice boards. Again, thanks to Amanda Sandoval. I love her. She has a template. I actually am going to provide you that template on the next slide. And what I have done is I've taken her template and adapted it and kind of modified it and remixed it many, many, many times. If you teach U.S. history and government, this folder is actually a view only. You can have that. You can have anything in this folder because I make pretty much anything. Anyone with a link can view. So if you teach U.S. history and government, you might find something that is of interest to you. Last summer, I created a this or that choice board, which I did share as a template. So this is kind of like another twist on it, where again, students can choose whether they want to do like the yellow square or the yellow round square. And it's kind of the same basic thing, whether it's a reading or a primary source. And I like this because it also allows me to add in some manipulatives. So I like to have a lot of draggable slides. I can't really do that in Pear Deck, but I can sure do that in a choice board. So you have 2 versions of a choice board, my this or that, and then Amanda Sandoval's, which I think actually, I don't even need to do that, is on the next slide. Yes, it is. So this is Amanda Sandoval's. I shared it with you as a template because I didn't include all the rest of the slides, but everything she does is linked in the same slide deck. So it's super easy. Like the reading is either like, wherever you wanted it to be. There's a video, a vocab, and you can change all of this. You can edit it to, fit your needs. But notice the step 2, some of that should look familiar. Like an infographic is another edu protocol that I forgot to mention. It's called Number Mania. Super easy for a history teacher because you can come up with numbers for just about everything, like especially war and things like that. But also the Constitution. You'd be amazed at how many numbers you can associate with the Supreme Court, with Congress, with the Constitution. Digital poster, sketch and tell. So like we did earlier, you can have students sketch and tell. This choice board, not in Pear Deck, but you have a copy of it. Playlist, which is number 4. This is from Amanda Sandoval's Q keynote. So it is kind of like a station rotation, but without movement. So if you don't want kids up and moving around for COVID reasons or whatever else the case may be, you could just as easily do this as a template. It's up there in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to quickly go through it. This is just so that you can see it. I remixed it because sometimes Sandoval, I like to sometimes recreate them, but I always give her credit where credit is due. So it was inspired by her. I just like to change it a little bit. Maybe I change the wording, or I just make it so that it's easier for my teachers to kind of use. But it's kind of this idea that everything they need is going to be in one contained Google slide deck. So I share that with students in whatever way is easiest. There's a sign-off sheet. You do some things as a group, you do some things together, whatever the case may be. The bonus that I'm giving you is a Google site with every digital escape room that I have built over the last 3 years. They are organized somewhat by subject. So there's some US history, world history, government, I think like 2 economics ones. So you have that. And then here's the one where I really wanted to end with, and that is all of my 1-pagers and all this other cool stuff that, my resources, which is going to like give you just about everything you need. I think I've left like 2 minutes for questions. Yes, amazing. I also need to, I'm going to stop sharing because if I go to my email, I will find the Pear Deck 90-day premium access, which I know is super exciting for some people. I mean, for me, for sure. But if there are any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or unmute and ask away, and I will do my best. I'm going to find my Pear Deck. Aha, there it is. Even though I wasn't there. Haha. Oh, nuts. Copy link address. Ha ha ha. Whoa. Okay, so that link is super duper long because it came from an email. But if you click that link and you do not have Pear Deck Premium, I think I just gave you a 90-day free trial of Pear Deck Premium with that super duper long link, which I shouldn't know. I can share. I'm a Pear Deck coach. I'm allowed to share stuff. I swear. I promise. But if there are other questions, I am more than willing to answer them. And I hope that you got, something out of this. Yeah. Oh, and actually, I'm so sorry. I think April had something she needed to say too. So I'm going to stop talking now.
No, you're good. You're good. I just wanted to say it was a great session, Brianna. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to go back to SCED if you would like to review the presentation materials as well as provide feedback. And we hope you guys join us for day 2 tomorrow. It's going to be great.